Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Anil Thomas. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar meets his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov in Moscow, discusses international strategic situation, conflict and tensions, says India-Russia ties very strong, very steady. Russia warns Japan over providing Patriot air defense systems to Ukraine. Russian Foreign Ministry says it will have grave consequences for Russia-Japan ties. India's current account deficit narrows to 1% of GDP in the second quarter of financial year 2023-24 amid a lower merchandise trade deficit coupled with robust service exports. World markets in the green, expecting a US Fed rate cut. Indian markets hit an all-time high. Nifty crosses 21,650 points in day's trade. Well, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar met his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov in Moscow on Wednesday. External Affairs Minister said that India-Russia relations have been very strong and very steady, and he believes that both the countries have lived up to a special and privileged strategic partnership. Dr. Jaishankar is on a 5-day visit to Russia.
Our relationship have been very strong, very steady, and I think we have lived up to the responsibilities of a special and privileged strategic partnership. I'm told this year we have already met 6 times, I believe. I learned this is our 7th meeting. A part of it is, of course, the G20, the SCO, the ASEAN, BRICS formats have today allowed many more and many regular contacts. And our leaders, Prime Minister Modi and President Putin, have also been in frequent contact. We are very glad to see continued progress. We expect a strong Russian participation at the vibrant Gujarat meeting in January, including a lot of governors from the Far East.
Well, Russian Foreign Ministry has warned Japan over providing Patriot air defense systems to Ukraine. Spokeswoman Maria Zakharova said if Japan decides to hand over Patriot air defense systems to Ukraine, it will have grave consequences for Russia-Japan ties. Japan has also joined its Western allies in imposing sweeping economic sanctions on Russia.
It is not excluded that the transfer of Patriot ammunition will involve the use of an already well-established scheme in which the munitions end up in Ukraine. Regarding that, we should like to warn that if Japanese missiles fall into the hands of Ukrainian armed forces, such actions will be regarded as hostile to the Russian Federation and will have grave consequences for Japan in the context of bilateral ties.
Well, US President Joe Biden spoke to Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the leaders of Qatar and Egypt on Wednesday in the aftermath of a deal to secure the release of hostages held by Hamas. Qatar and Egypt were mediators between Israel and Hamas in the late November truce. The White House in a statement said that the leaders discussed the urgent efforts to secure the release of remaining hostages held by Hamas and increasing access to aid. The Israel-Hamas conflict in Gaza will likely go on for many months. This is according to the country's military chief, Herzi Halevi, who said that Israel has promised to annihilate Hamas after its fighters infiltrated Israeli border towns, killing 1,200 people and took about 240 hostages back to Gaza. The Israeli forces are continuing their offensive against Hamas, deploying multiple methods and strategies.
There are no magic solutions. There are no shortcuts in dismantling a terrorist organization. Only determined and persistent fighting will work and we are very, very determined. We will reach Hamas's leadership too, whether it takes a week or if it takes months.
Iran has warned that Iran has warned that Israel will pay the price for the assassination of Islamic Revolution Guard Corps veteran commander Sayyid Razi Mousavi in Syria. The IRGC announced on Monday that Mousavi, serving as a military advisor, was killed in an Israeli missile attack in the Syrian capital of Damascus. Mousavi was responsible for backing up the resistance front in Syria and one of the comrades of the late Iranian commander Qasem Soleimani, who was assassinated in a drone strike near the Baghdad International Airport in January 2020. Iran's defense ministry on Tuesday also promised a strong response, calling the act a terrorist crime. Israeli agency has reported that on Tuesday, 83 humanitarian aid trucks and 7 ambulances were inspected at the Nitzana checkpoint and transferred to Gaza via the Rafah crossing from Egypt. At the request of the UN, the Kerem Shalom border crossing was closed for inspection of 8 trucks due to logistic constraints on the Gazan side of the crossing. Earlier, Israeli agency Cognitive Abilities Test reported that 218 trucks loaded with humanitarian aid for the people of Gaza were inspected and transferred to the Gaza Strip on Monday. The United Nations has assigned Sigrid Kaag as a humanitarian coordinator. Her appointment follows last week's UN Security Council resolution calling for more aid to enter the Palestinian enclave. DD India's William Denslow has more from New York.
As well as serving as Finance Minister and Deputy Prime Minister in the Netherlands, Sigrid Kaag has also performed a number of UN duties in the past, including Special Coordinator for Lebanon. Now, as of January 8th, she'll be taking on a new UN role, which is Humanitarian Relief Coordinator in Gaza. The United Nations describes her responsibilities, including her work to facilitate, coordinate, monitor and verify humanitarian relief consignments for Gaza. This is part of a UN Security Council resolution that was passed last week that calls for the urgent steps to be taken to immediately allow the safe, unhindered and expanded humanitarian access in Gaza. The resolution took days of diplomatic wranglings for Council members to find enough consensus to pass it. But critics say it's been watered down and diluted too much, no longer calling for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire. UN aid agencies warn that the healthcare system in Gaza is on the brink of collapse, and other aid officials on the ground warn that a quarter of the population in the Palestinian enclave are facing catastrophic levels of hunger. Recently, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres says that a ceasefire is the only way to end the nightmare people in Gaza are currently going through. William Denslow in New York, reporting for DD India.
Well, the crisis unfolding in the Red Sea, coupled with the Panama Canal drought, is a cause of growing concern for global trade. The current fighting has seen a sharp rise in oil prices with over a 2% surge on Tuesday. DD India's Mihir Makuri explores what could be the reasons for the rising tensions in the Red Sea.
Amidst the ongoing Israel-Hamas conflict, Yemen's Iran-backed Houthi rebels have again stepped up their Red Sea attacks, threatening to target all ships heading to Israel and warning shipping companies against dealing with Israeli ports in solidarity with Gazans. Houthis claimed responsibility for Tuesday's missile attack on a container ship in the Red Sea.
The Yemeni armed forces confirmed the continuation of their operations in the Red Sea and the Arabian Sea against Israeli ships or those heading to the ports of occupied Palestine until the food and medicine needed by the Gaza Strip are brought in.
However, the Mediterranean shipping company said there were no injuries to its crew from the attack on its ship, the United 8, en route from Saudi Arabia to Pakistan. Israel has referred to the Houthi attacks on ships at sea as an act of Iranian terrorism.
The attacks at sea on ships which have no Israeli link is an act of Iranian terrorism carried out by the Houthis, and this is a global problem.
On Tuesday, the United States claimed to have shot down 5 missiles fired by the Iranian-backed Houthis and 12 attack drones. Meanwhile, the Israeli military declared that an Israeli fighter plane had intercepted a quote-unquote hostile aerial target that was headed toward Israeli territory over the Red Sea region.
Today, an Israeli fighter jet intercepted a hostile aerial target in the Red Sea area, which was en route to Israeli territory. It did not cross into Israeli territory. The Houthi fire towards Israeli territory is an act of terrorism. It is an act directed by Iran and by means of Iranian intelligence and weapons.
The reported incidents come a week after the United States announced a multinational maritime security initiative in the Red Sea region in response to attacks on vessels by Yemen's Houthis. India has also vowed a strong response against those who masterminded the attacks on MV Chem Pluto in Arabian Sea and drone attack on vessel MV Sai Baba in Red Sea. The Houthi strikes have resulted in a dramatic increase in container transportation rates as businesses look to ship their goods via alternate, often longer routes. Mayor Makri, DD, India.
Well, now for some news from across the world. Veteran German politician Wolfgang Schäuble, who served as a member of the Bundestag parliament for over half a century, died at the age of 81. One of Germany's longest-serving politicians, Schäuble spent much of his career devoted to reunifying his country. He later served as former Chancellor Angela Merkel's finance minister during the Eurozone debt crisis. The wall of the historic Gyeongbokgung Palace in South Korea's capital, Seoul, will be reopened for the public on January 4th. The walls were vandalized by graffiti twice. The Cultural Heritage Administration said that the scroll is being erased after undergoing post-work and expert review. It also announced plans for a comprehensive set of measures to prevent damages to cultural properties. Malaysia's Melaka city is preparing to dazzle visitors with its array of year-end festivities, including the Visit Melaka Year 2024. The Melaka government is focusing on efforts to ensure the cleanliness and beauty of 8 entry points in the state to welcome the 18 million tourists and visitors. South Korean actor Lee Sun-kun, who starred in the Oscar-winning film Parasite, was found dead on Wednesday. The police said to have found evidence of lit charcoal. Briskets inside the 48-year-old actor's car, suggesting his death may have been a suicide. Still to come on this edition of DD India Live. Japan to restart world's biggest nuclear plant after 12 years of Fukushima disaster. Flooding and storms cause havoc as extreme weather hits US and Australia. India among the top 10 best performing stock markets in the world in 2023.
Well, 2023 is about to end, but it gave us a lot of memories to cherish, especially in the world of cinema. World really went Natu Natu on the peppy beats of the famous movie RRR that got global recognition. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once that completely dominated the 95th Academy Awards. The remarkable career of Michael Douglas and the legend of Bollywood Wahida Rahman was bestowed with the most iconic Dada Saheb Phalke Lifetime Achievement Award. Watch ACOS 2023 World Goes Natu Natu at these times on 28th of December only on DD India.
You're watching DD India Live. I'm Anil Thomas. Japan's Nuclear Regulation Authority on Wednesday decided to lift the de facto ban on operations at Tokyo Electric Power Company Holdings' Kashiwazaki Kariwa nuclear power plant. The nuclear watchdog determined that it now has enough information to lift the ban at the plant in central Japan following additional inspections and meetings with TEPCO president. Well, DD India's Patrick has more from Singapore.
As recently as May, Japan's Nuclear Regulation Authority had decided against lifting this de facto ban. It's actually a ban on the movement of fuel because of various concerns about anti-terrorism measures and measures to prevent unauthorized access to restricted areas. But those concerns appear to have been addressed now. There have been a series of inspections since then. There have also been a series of meetings with Tokyo Electric Power's president. So this decision to lift the ban as early as today paves the way for operations to restart and for the plant to get back online. And this is important not just for TEPCO, but also for Japanese households and consumers because of rising energy inflation. It was in June, as a matter of fact, that TEPCO applied for and was granted permission to raise energy tariffs by 14%. But this restarting of the nuclear plant will mean that it can rely less on more expensive thermal energy. So it's important, as I say, for Japanese households and also for Japan's efforts towards decarbonisation. TEPCO is not actually restarting the plant right away. Apart from anything else, it still needs to apply for permission from local government authorities as well. In addition to that, TEPCO's president said, you know, this is really a matter of building trust among the people, and there has been a big emphasis not just on addressing those security measures, but also on convincing the public that, you know, there are constant improvements to security measures being made as well, and to continually build confidence. Importantly, the Kashiwazaki Kariwa plant was not impacted by the 2011 Fukushima disaster, but it was closed in the aftermath of that, along with all nuclear plants in Japan. It was impacted in 2007, as a matter of fact, by an earthquake which caused damage to the plant. So this is part of a long process, if you like, towards Japan restarting nuclear energy operations.
Well, the Russia-Ukraine crisis is now into day 672. The armed conflict between the two countries and the deadly strikes between Russia and Ukraine continued as counter-offensive operations intensified. At least 2 were killed in Russia's latest drone attack on Wednesday. Let's take a look at this report on Russia-Ukraine crisis.
A day after Russian defense minister said Ukrainian counter-offensive stopped, Ukraine's air defense shot down 32 out of 46 Russia-launched drones on Wednesday. Earlier, Russian forces shelled the railway station in southern Ukrainian city of Kherson. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky also confirmed the attack and said that the number of casualties are still being ascertained.
There was a Russian strike on the Kherson railway station. There was an evacuation train. All services are now on site. The number of dead and injured is being established. There were many civilians there.
Earlier on Tuesday, Ukraine attacked the Crimean port of Fedosia, damaging a large Russian landing ship, killing 1 person and injuring 2 others.
A big assault carrier was destroyed, and it became a part of a fleet to which Moskva missile cruiser belongs.
Kyiv, which had used cruise missiles in the attack, did not specify its kinds, as both Britain and France have supplied Ukraine with such missiles. While Russia has hinted that it may try to seize more Ukrainian territory along the Black Sea coast, as Putin earlier this month said that Odessa, the headquarters of Ukraine's own navy, was a Russian city.
The Chinese government on Wednesday threatened to place further trade sanctions on Taiwan in a further escalation of the war of words as Taiwan's presidential and parliamentary elections, which are scheduled on Jan 13th, approach closer. Earlier this month, Taiwan accused China of economic coercion and election interference after Beijing announced the end of tariff cuts, claiming Taipei violated a trade agreement between the two sides signed in 2010. Thousands gathered in front of the Central Election Commission building in Belgrade on Tuesday to protest over the recent election results. The opposition Serbia Against Violence Alliance, which was placed second in a general election earlier this month, have accused the ruling Serbian Progressive Party of widespread vote fraud. Serbia Against Violence has been organizing daily protests over the results in front of the Election Commission. On Sunday evening, the protests turned violent and 38 people were detained by the police. This happened after an international monitoring mission last week accused the ruling party of an unfair advantage through media bias, improper influence of President Alexander Vučić, and voting irregularities. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh visited Rajouri during his day-long tour of Jammu and Kashmir. The minister reviewed the security situation in the wake of the recent terrorist attack in Poonch and district, which also left 4 soldiers martyred. Defence Minister said that every soldier is very important to us and every soldier is like a member of the family, and we cannot tolerate anyone looking down on our soldier and countrymen.
मैं आपको आश्वस्त करना चाहता हूं कि घटना की गंभीरता को देखते हुए जो भी आवश्यक और जो भी उचित कदम है वह उठाने की भरपूर कोशिश की जा रही है। हमारे लिए हर सैनिक बेहद महत्वपूर्ण है और हमारा एक सैनिक, मैं मानता हूं, वह हमारे परिवार के सदस्य के समान है। यह हम सब के अंदर यह भावना रहती है, सारे देशवासियों के अंदर यह भावना रहती है, और आपके ऊपर कोई नजर डाले तो सचमुच यह हम सबको कतई बर्दाश्त नहीं है।
Well, India's cabinet has approved opening of a Consulate General of India in New Zealand's Auckland City to increase India's diplomatic footprint in the view of India's increasing global engagement. Consulates will promote India's strategic and commercial interest and better serve welfare of Indian community in Auckland. The consulate to open and fully operationalize within a time frame of just 12 months. Cabinet's approval was also given to the proposal of Ministry of External Affairs to sign and ratify the Migration and Mobility Agreement between India and Italy. The agreement to enhance people-to-people contacts, foster mobility of students, skilled workers, business people and young professionals, and strengthen cooperation on issues related to irregular migration between the two sides. The agreement locks in the current Italian visa regime, including mechanisms for post-study opportunities, internships, professional trainings, assuring an advantage for India under the existing labour mobility pathways under the FLOS decree. India's cabinet has approved signing of an MOU for cooperation in broadcasting between public broadcaster Prasar Bharati and Radio Television Malaysia. The MOU, which was signed on the 7th of November this year, aims to promote cooperation in public broadcasting in a field of radio and television. With this, the number of MOUs that have been signed by Prasar Bharati with different countries has increased to 46. As India's economy is on the rise, and as per the data released by the Reserve Bank of India on Tuesday, India's current account deficit declined to 1% of the GDP. in the second quarter, down from 1.1% in the preceding quarter and 3.8% from a year ago. The current account deficit decreased to $8.3 billion in the September quarter of 23-24 against the deficit of $9.2 billion in the preceding 3 months. The decline is largely due to the narrowing of the merchandise trade deficit and growth and services export. Over 114,000 startups have been recognized by the Indian government so far, who have created over 1.2 million jobs. In an annual review on Tuesday, the Commerce Ministry said that the average of 11 jobs were created by each unorganized startup under the Startup India program. Indian government has implemented several programs over the years under the Startup India initiative to support entrepreneurship, build a robust startup ecosystem, and to transform India into a country of job creators rather than job seekers. India's Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra is being undertaken across the country with an aim to attain saturation of flagship schemes of the government through ensuring that the benefits of those schemes reach the targeted beneficiaries in a time-bound manner. In this series, Prime Minister interacted with beneficiaries of the initiative via video conferencing. He also addressed the gathering on the occasion. Thousands of beneficiaries of Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra from across the country joined the event. The program was also joined by ministers, MPs, MLAs and local level representatives. Since its launch on the 15th of November this year, Prime Minister has regularly held such interactions which have regular visitors so that which have visited India more than once. In Asia, stocks went up on Wednesday, buoyed by the year-end expectations. In India, the shares advanced, tracking gains in Asia and driven by optimism that the Federal Reserve could begin cutting interest rates early next year. The Sensex jumped over 500 points, Nifty 50 hitting its fresh record high of over 21,650 points during the session. Japan's Nikkei climbed 1.2%, while the Hong Kong Hang Seng Index advanced by 0.9%. In early 2023, Indian stock market started on a tough note. The benchmark index then rebounded impressively, pushing India into the list of top 10 best performing global markets. The Nifty 50 index has demonstrated its strength with an 18% year-to-date gain, bouncing back from a low of 16,828 points in March. It surged over 28%, reaching a record high of 21,650 points by the end of 2023. The Nifty 50 performed better than many developed and emerging markets counterparts, while China's Shanghai Composite Index struggled for a second year, posting a negative return of over 5% after a 15% loss in 2022. Weather-related updates now. First from Australia, where at least 10 people have died following severe thunderstorms in the eastern states of Victoria, New South Wales and Queensland. More than 90,000 households are still without power as large hailstones and strong winds blew off roofs and brought down trees. The acute weather has also been affected due to Cyclone Jasper, which has caused widespread damage. In the U.S., a severe windstorm is battering the northern plains and upper Midwest regions, causing travel chaos and power outages for millions of people. The National Weather Service has issued a warning that blizzard conditions for central South Dakota to parts of Nebraska, Kansas and Colorado, resulting in difficult to near impossible travel in the aftermath of Christmas. The storm is expected to dump as much as 13 inches of snow in some areas of South Dakota, along with a 40-mile winds, which can also speed up to 55 miles per hour. Well, a quick update on the test match between India and South Africa being played there. An interesting contest on the cards. India losing the plot, bowled out for 245, South Africa in return 150 for 3 when reports last came in. Well, that's all in this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, and also Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I am Anil Thomas from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.